The great space station called Concordia Prime floated in the dark between stars. It was bigger than most planets and home to the Galactic Assembly. Today, creatures from hundreds of worlds had come together for the most important meeting in thousands of years. Ambassador Chen Wei walked through the long halls of the station. His simple black suit looked plain next to the bright colors and strange shapes of the other beings around him. Some had wings, others had tentacles, and many looked like nothing he had ever seen on Earth. But Chen had been doing this job for 10 years. Nothing surprised him anymore. The main meeting room was huge. It could hold thousands of beings at once. Chen found his seat in the section marked for Earth. It was not a very good seat. The humans always got placed near the back, even though they had been part of the assembly for 300 years. Chancellor Vex 9 called the meeting to start. The Chancellor was a Zephyrian, tall as a tree and covered in blue scales that changed color when he spoke. His voice boomed across the room without any machine to make it louder. "Friends from across the galaxy," Chancellor Vex 9 said, "we face our darkest hour. The Void Devourers have returned." A cold silence filled the room. Even Chen felt a chill run down his back. The Void Devourers were ancient machines that ate entire star systems. They had been sleeping for millions of years, but now they were awake and hungry. "They have already destroyed 57 star systems on the outer rim," the Chancellor continued. "Our best minds say they will reach the core worlds in less than 5 years. We must act now." Pictures appeared in the air above the crowd. They showed dead solar systems where planets and stars had simply disappeared. Nothing was left but empty space. Chum had seen these images before in secret human military reports, but seeing them again still made his stomach feel sick. "That is why we are here today," Chancellor Vex 9 said. "To create the final covenant. Every species must join. Every species must give their best weapons, their best ships, their best soldiers. Only together can we stop this threat." One by one, the species leaders stood to agree. The Draconian Empire promised their battle fleets. The Crystal Consortium offered their energy weapons. The Ethereal Collective said they would share their war strategies. Each promise was bigger than the last. Chun watched it all happen. He knew what was coming. For 300 years, when the galaxy had a problem it could not solve, they called on humans. When the Korthax and Selenites were about to start a war over mining rights, humans had found a way to share the resources. When the Chronarch Navy got lost in time loops, human pilots had guided them home. Humans were good at solving problems that seemed impossible. They saw things other species missed. They made connections that the smartest computers could not understand. The Assembly had learned to depend on them. And now, Chancellor Vex 9 said, his scales turning a deep purple, "We call upon our human friends. Your species has saved us before. Your clever minds and brave hearts have solved every crisis. What do you offer for the final covenant?" Every eye in the room turned to Chun. He could feel the weight of their hope pressing down on him. These beings expected humans to save them again. They expected some brilliant new plan or amazing technology that would defeat the void. Devours. Chun stood up slowly. His legs felt heavy. The message he carried from Earth was not what anyone wanted to hear. "Honored Chancellor," Chun said. His voice was much quieter than the others, but the room was so silent that everyone heard him clearly. "I bring greetings from the Terran Federation and respect for this great assembly." He paused and looked around the room. He saw hope in their alien faces. Some were already leaning forward, waiting to hear about the wonderful human solution. "However," Chung continued, "I must inform you that the Terran Federation respectfully declines to participate in the final covenant at this time." The words hit the room like a bomb blast. The silence was so complete that Chun could hear his own heart beating. Then the whispers started. They grew louder and louder until they became shouts. "Impossible!" called out General Thrak of the Draconian Empire. His red eyes glowed with anger. "This must be a mistake," said the crystal being who spoke for the consortium. Her voice rang like broken glass. Chancellor Vex-9 raised his arms for quiet. His scales had turned almost black with shock. "Ambassador Chun," he said, "surely you do not mean this. Perhaps you need time to discuss with your people?" Chun shook his head. He had hoped someone would accept the message easily, but he knew that was foolish thinking. "There is no mistake, Chancellor. The decision has been made by our highest leaders. Earth will not join any military alliance at this time." "But why?" demanded the ethereal collective speaker. The ghostly being seemed to flicker with confusion. "You have always helped us before. We need you now more than ever." Chun had expected this question. Earth's leaders had given him many reasons he could share, but they all came down to one simple truth. Humans were tired of being used. The Terran Federation believes that each species must learn to solve its own problems, Chun said. "We have helped for 300 years. Now it is time for the galaxy to stand on its own." The room erupted into chaos. Beings jumped to their feet, shouting in dozens of languages. Some demanded that Earth change its mind. Others accused humans of being cowards or traitors. A few just stared in shock. Chun gathered his papers and put them in his bag. He had delivered his message. There was nothing more to say. As he walked toward the exit, Chancellor Vex-9 called after him. "Ambassador Chun, where are you going? We must discuss this." Chun stopped and turned around one last time. "There is nothing to discuss, Chancellor. Earth has made its choice. We wish you luck with your war." Then he walked out of the great meeting room, leaving behind hundreds of shocked aliens who had just realized they might have to save themselves for the first time in 3 centuries. The door closed behind him with a soft whisper. But Chun knew that sound would echo through the galaxy for years to come. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On every world, in every space station, beings gathered around their communication devices to hear the impossible story. Earth had said no. On the crystal world of Luxara, the consortium leaders met in their great tower that reached into the clouds. Their bodies were made of living diamond, and when they were upset, they rang like bells. Now the whole tower filled with the sound of their distress. "How can this be?" asked Prime Crystal Zura 7. Her voice made the walls shake. "The humans have never refused to help before. They solved our power crisis 50 years ago. They designed our new energy collectors. Maybe they want something in return," suggested another crystal being. "More territory? Better trade deals?" But Zara 7 shook her head, making a sound like wind chimes. No, Ambassador Chun was clear. They simply will not join the war. Far away on the war moon of Draco Prime, General Thrak paced back and forth in his command center. His thick red skin was darker than usual, a sign of deep anger. Around him, his officers watched nervously. "Call Earth again," Thrak commanded. "Demand to speak with their war leaders." "Sir," said a younger officer, "we have tried 17 times. Their patrol ships turn away all our messages. They say Earth is not accepting diplomatic contact at this time." Thrak slammed his massive fist on the table. The metal bent under the impact. "This is madness. My fleet has used human battle plans for 200 years. My captains have trained in their academies. How can we fight without their strategies?" He turned to his battle computer, a machine as large as a building. "Computer, show me our chances against the Void Devourers without human support." The screen lit up with numbers and charts. After a few moments, the computer's voice spoke in its flat, emotionless way. Probability of victory, 12%. Estimated casualties, 89% of all galactic forces. The room fell silent. Even Thrak, who had won 100 battles, felt his heart sink. On the floating cities of Ethereal, the collective gathered in their mind-linked chambers. These ghostly beings could think together as one great intelligence. For 1,000 years, they had been the smartest strategists in the galaxy. But today, their minds were full of confusion. Elder Whisper spoke for all of them. Her voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. We have run every possible battle plan through our linked consciousness. We have calculated every strategy we can imagine. Without the human element, we cannot find a path to victory. The other ethereals flickered with worry. They existed mostly as energy and thought, but even they could feel fear. What is this human element we depend on? Asked one of the younger minds. Elder Whisper's form grew dimmer as she concentrated. We do not fully understand it ourselves. Humans see patterns that our logic cannot find. They make connections that seem impossible. When we calculate that something cannot be done, they find a way to do it anyway. Then why are they abandoning us now? The young mind pressed. That, Elder Whisper admitted, is a question we cannot answer. The panic was worst on Concordia Prime itself. The space station that had been the center of galactic government for 5,000 years suddenly felt fragile and small. Emergency meetings happened every hour. Species that had been allies for centuries began to argue. Chancellor Vex 9 had not slept since the humans left 3 days ago. His blue scales had turned a sick gray color. He stood in his private office, staring out at the stars and wondering if they would still be there next year. His aide, a small furry creature called a Vixling, brought him reports every few minutes. Each one was worse than the last. Chancellor, the Vixling squeaked. The Selenite engineers say they cannot finish the new defense shields without human technical advisors. And the Korthax battle fleet is demanding that we force Earth to honor their old treaties. They say half their weapon systems use human designs. Anything else? The Vixling looked even more nervous. Sir, the Chronarch Navy has sent a message from 3 hours in the future. They say that without human navigators, they will become lost in time during any major battle. Chancellor Vex 9 closed his eyes. The Chronarchs could see through time itself, but they needed human intuition to guide them safely. How had the galaxy become so dependent on one species? Sir, the Vixling said softly, there is one more thing. The assembly members are starting to leave. The Aquari delegation departed this morning. The Silicon Collective is packing their ships. They say there is no point in staying if Earth will not fight. The Chancellor nodded slowly. He had expected this. For 300 years, the assembly had worked because everyone trusted the humans to find solutions. Without them, the old fears and rivalries were returning. What about the Void Devourers? He asked. They have consumed 7 more systems since Earth refused to help. The pattern has changed, sir. They are moving faster now, as if they know we are weak. Chancellor Vex 9 turned away from the window. Send messages to every world that still listens to us. Tell them to prepare their own defenses. Tell them. He paused, trying to find words for something he had never imagined saying. Tell them the Galactic Assembly can no longer protect them. Meanwhile, at the edge of the Sol system, human patrol ships moved in patterns that made no sense to anyone watching them. They appeared and disappeared like ghosts. When alien ships tried to approach Earth, the human vessels would suddenly be there, politely but firmly turning them away. Captain Sarah Kim commanded one of these patrol ships. She watched another draconian messenger vessel retreat toward the jump point that would take it back to assembly space. That's the 5th one today, her communications officer reported. Any of them try to force their way through? Captain Kim asked. No, sir. They all turned back when we asked them to. But their messages are getting more desperate. Captain Kim nodded. She felt sorry for the aliens, in a way. But Earth's decision was final. For 3 centuries, humans had run to help every time the galaxy faced a crisis. They had died in alien wars, solved alien problems, and created alien technologies. And through it all, they had been treated as junior partners at best. "Any word from High Command?" she asked. "Yes, sir." The orders remained the same. No alien ships enter the system. No diplomatic contact. Earth is officially neutral. Captain Kim looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, ancient machines were eating entire solar systems. The galaxy was about to face its greatest challenge ever. And for the first time in 300 years, they would have to face it without human help. "Good," she said quietly. "It's time they learned to stand on their own." 2 weeks after Earth's refusal, the Galactic Assembly began to fall apart like a house made of cards in a strong wind dot. It started with a small argument between the Draconian Empire and the Crystal Consortium over mining rights in the Spiral Nebula. For 50 years, this dispute had been settled. The humans had found a way for both species to share the rich mineral deposits there. But now, without human mediators, old anger came rushing back. General Thrak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Fist. Through the main viewer, he could see crystal ships moving into formation around the disputed asteroid fields. Their diamond hulls caught starlight and threw it back in rainbow patterns. "They have no right to those asteroids," Thrak growled to his officers. "Our ships found them first, 300 years ago." "Sir," his second-in-command said carefully, "the human agreement clearly states that both species can mine there. We have followed this plan for decades without problems." "The human agreement," Thrak spat. "Where are the humans now?" "They abandon us in our hour of need, so their agreements mean nothing." Prime Crystal Zara 7 was thinking the same thing on her command ship, the Singing Light. She watched Draconian battlecruisers move closer to her mining platforms. "The humans are gone," she told her crystal officers. "They cannot force us to share what is rightfully ours. These asteroids contain the pure energy crystals we need for our defense systems. If we must fight the Void Devourers alone, we need every resource." Both fleets began to power their weapons. It was the first time in 3 centuries that 2 assembly members had prepared for war against each other. On Concordia Prime, Chancellor Vex 9 received the reports with growing horror. His scales had turned almost white with stress. "Contact both fleets," he ordered. "Tell them to stand down immediately." His aide tried for 2 hours, but neither side would listen. Finally, General Thrak himself answered the call. "Chancellor," the Draconian said with false politeness, "we appreciate your concern, but the Empire will defend its property." "General, this is exactly what the Void Devourers want," Chancellor Vex 9 pleaded. "They want us to fight each other instead of preparing to fight them." "Then, you should have thought of that before you let the humans walk away," Thrak replied, and cut the connection. The first shots were fired 3 hours later. They were small shots, more like warnings than real attacks. But they were the first hostile fire between assembly members in 300 years. The news spread quickly. On dozens of worlds, species leaders looked at their old rivals and began to remember ancient grudges. The Aquari Collective, who lived in vast underwater cities, suddenly remembered their territorial disputes with the air dancers of the cloud worlds. The Silicon Collective, beings made of living metal, began to question their trade agreements with the organic species. "Why should we sell our rare metals cheaply?" asked Silicon Prime Unit 1. "The flesh beings take our resources and give us nothing but empty promises in return." The air dancers, who lived their whole lives floating in the upper atmosphere of gas giants, began to close their trade routes. "The water breathers want to expand into our sky territory," said Windsinger Aura. "They always have." Only the human treaties kept them away. Each broken agreement led to another argument. Each argument led to threats. Each threat brought the galaxy closer to the civil wars that had torn it apart before the humans arrived. But the worst news came from the outer rim. Deep in space, the monitoring station Omega-7 watched the advance of the Void Devourers. The station was run by machines, since no living being could survive this close to the ancient destroyers. Every day, the machines sent their reports back to the core worlds. Today's report was different from all the others. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the chief science officer on Concordia Prime, stared at the data with growing fear. She was one of the few humans who had stayed behind when the diplomats left. Her job was too important to abandon. "This cannot be right," she whispered to herself. "Run the analysis again." Her computer, a hybrid of human and alien technology, processed the information once more. The answer was the same. "Doctor," the computer said in its calm voice, "the Void Devourers have changed their consumption pattern. Instead of methodically processing one system at a time, they are now attacking multiple targets simultaneously." Dr. Vasquez pulled up the star charts. Red marks showed where the Devourers had already struck. The pattern that had held for weeks was broken. Instead of moving in a careful line from one system to the next, the red marks were scattered across a wide area. "How many systems in the last week?" she asked. 23, Doctor." Previously, they were consuming 3 to 4 systems per week. The rate has increased by over 500%. Dr. Vasquez felt sick. The Void Devourers were machines, but they were not stupid machines. Somehow, they knew the galaxy was weak and divided. She called Chancellor Vex 9 immediately. "Chancellor, we have a major problem," she said when his tired face appeared on her screen. "The Devourers are accelerating their advance. At this rate, they will reach the inner worlds in 18 months, not 5 years. Chancellor Vex 9's scales turned completely white. "Are you certain?" "I have run the numbers 5 times. "Sir, there is something else. The pattern of their attacks suggests they are specifically targeting systems that were defended by multi-species cooperation. They are hitting the joint mining operations first, the shared research stations, the mixed colonies. As if they know our alliance is broken," the Chancellor whispered. "Yes, sir. Exactly as if they know." After the call ended, Dr. Vasquez sat alone in her laboratory, surrounded by data that painted a picture of galactic doom. Without the humans, the assembly was falling apart. Without unity, the defense against the Void Devourers was crumbling. And the ancient machines seemed to sense it like sharks smelling blood in water. She thought about her orders from Earth. When the diplomats left, they had told all humans to return home immediately. Only essential personnel were allowed to stay, and only if they volunteered. Dr. Vasquez had volunteered because she believed her research was important. Now, she wondered if it mattered. The galaxy was dying, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. On the bridge of the Iron Fist, General Thrak was learning the same lesson. His battle with the Crystal Consortium had lasted only 6 hours before they both received news that made their dispute seem small and foolish. The Void Devourers had consumed the Rigel system, home to 12 billion beings from 6 different species. It had been one of the most heavily defended systems in the galaxy, protected by the best ships and weapons the Assembly could provide. The entire system was gone in less than 2 days. "Sir," Thrak's communications officer reported, "we are receiving a message from Prime Crystal Zara 7. The crystal being appeared on the screen. Her diamond body had lost its bright shine and looked dull and gray." "General Thrak," she said formally, "the Crystal Consortium proposes an immediate ceasefire. We have greater enemies to face." Thrak nodded slowly. "Agreed. But how do we fight them? Our combined fleets could not match what was lost at Rigel." "I do not know," Zara 7 admitted. For 300 years, when we faced the impossible, we called upon human wisdom. But the humans are gone. Then we must learn to be wise ourselves, Thrak said. But his voice carried no confidence. Neither of them believed it would be enough. The revelation came from the most unexpected source. Elder Whisper of the Ethereal Collective had not left her mind-link chamber for 3 weeks. Her ghostly form flickered weakly as she pushed her consciousness to its absolute limits. The other ethereals watched her with growing worry. "Elder," one of them whispered, "you must rest. This deep probe will damage your essence permanently." But Elder Whisper could not stop now. She had to understand. For 3 weeks, she had been trying to analyze every human decision, every human solution, every human breakthrough from the past 3 centuries. There had to be a pattern, a secret, something that explained how humans achieve the impossible. "I can see it," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "The connections are there, but they make no logical sense. How do humans know which path to choose when all paths seem equally likely to fail?" She dove deeper into the data, her consciousness spreading thin across thousands of archived records. The strain was enormous, but she was the most powerful telepath in the galaxy. If anyone could find the answer, it was her. Then she touched something that made her entire being freeze with shock. 3 days earlier, when Ambassador Chen Wei had departed Concordia Prime, he had left behind more than just his official statements. Like all beings with active minds, he had left traces of his thoughts in the quantum fields around the station. Most telepaths could not read these faint impressions. But Elder Whisper was not most telepaths. She reached out with her consciousness and touched the ghost of Chen's thoughts. What she found changed everything. "Emergency assembly," she commanded. Her voice suddenly strong again. "Gather all remaining collective minds. What I have discovered must be shared immediately." Within minutes, 50 of the most powerful ethereal minds linked together in a consciousness web that spanned light years. Elder Whisper showed them what she had learned. The images flowed through their shared awareness. Chen Wei's memories, fragmented but clear enough to understand. The secret meetings on Earth before his departure. The true reasons behind humanity's decision. And most shocking of all, the real nature of human problem-solving abilities. "Impossible," whispered one of the younger minds. "This cannot be how they think." But Elder Whisper had seen the truth in Chun's own memories. It is. When humans face a problem that seems unsolvable, they do not calculate probabilities like we do. They do not run logic trees like the Silicon Collective. They do not even plan carefully like the Draconians. Then what do? Demanded another mind. "They feel," Elder Whisper replied. "They sense patterns that exist beyond logical analysis." When Chen Wei solved the Cortex selenite mining dispute, he did not study the legal documents first. He looked at both species and somehow knew that the Cortex valued honor, while the selenites valued security. He felt the solution before he thought it. The web of minds rippled with confusion. But feeling is not logical. It is not reliable. "That is what we believed," Elder Whisper said. "But observe this memory fragment." She shared another image from Chun's thoughts. It showed him as a young diplomat, newly arrived at Concordia Prime, facing his first crisis. A plague was spreading through the vegan colonies, and 3 different species were blaming each other. The scientists had tried dozens of cures. The politicians had held endless meetings. Chun had walked into the medical bay and simply observed. He had not read the reports or studied the data. He had watched the sick beings and listened to their families. After 2 hours, he had suggested something that made no scientific sense. Treating the plague not as a disease, but as a communication breakdown between the colony's bio-systems. It had worked perfectly. Humans do not solve problems. Elder Whisper explained to the stunned collective. They dissolve them. They see connections that should not exist and trust those connections even when logic says they are wrong. How is such a thing possible? Asked the eldest member of the collective. I believe, Elder Whisper said carefully, that human consciousness operates on quantum levels that we have never understood. They do not just think with their brains. They think with probability fields themselves. The collective fell silent as they processed this information. It explained everything. How humans had guided the Chronarch Navy through time paradoxes by following their instincts instead of calculations. How they had designed energy systems that worked better than they should according to physics. How they had prevented wars by understanding the emotional needs of species they had never met before. They are quantum empaths, Elder Whisper concluded. They feel the shape of reality itself and adjust their actions to create the outcomes they desire. Then, why are they abandoning us now? Demanded a younger mind. Elder Whisper shared the final, most painful memory from Chen Wei's thoughts. It was a conversation between Chun and his superior on Earth, just before his departure for Concordia Prime. We cannot keep being the galaxy's miracle workers, the Earth official had said. Do you know what the other species call us behind our backs? Lucky humans. Useful humans. The ones who somehow always find a way. They do not respect us, Chun. They use us. But millions will die if we withdraw now, Chun had protested. Millions have already died in wars we prevented from becoming billions. We have saved this galaxy 100 times over, and still they treat us like junior partners. It is time for them to grow up. The collective absorbed this memory with something approaching horror. Elder Whisper felt their shared shame as they realized the truth. The galaxy had become addicted to human solutions. They had stopped trying to solve their own problems because they knew the humans would always find a way. We did this to ourselves, Elder Whisper said quietly. We became dependent on their gifts and never acknowledged what we were taking from them. What do we do now? Asked one of the minds. We tell the truth, Elder Whisper replied. We tell the galaxy exactly what humans are and what we have lost. And we pray it is not too late to earn their forgiveness. The message went out within hours, transmitted to every world still connected to the Galactic Communication Network. The ethereal collective's analysis spread like wildfire through the remaining assembly worlds. On Draconia Prime, General Thrak read the report 3 times before he believed it. Quantum empaths, he muttered to his staff. No wonder our battle computers never understood their strategies. They were not following logic. They were following reality itself. On the crystal world of Luxara, Prime Crystal Zara 7 resonated with a sound like breaking glass as she realized the magnitude of their mistake. We treated them like clever servants, she said to her council. We never understood they were wielding forces beyond our comprehension. On Concordia Prime, Chancellor Vex 9 sat in his office and stared at the report until his scales turned black with despair. For 300 years, the Assembly had been guided by beings who could literally reshape probability through intuition and empathy. And they had repaid this gift by keeping humans in minor positions and treating their contributions as lucky guesses. Dr. Elena Vasquez, still working alone in her laboratory, received the ethereal analysis and finally understood why Earth had made its choice. She was human herself, and reading the report was like looking in a mirror she had never known existed. She had always wondered why her research seemed to work better when she followed her hunches instead of her calculations. Why her most important discoveries came from moments when she simply knew something was true before she could prove it. Now she understood. Her species did not just think about the universe. They felt it, sensed its patterns, and gently guided those patterns toward better outcomes. And the galaxy had taken this miracle for granted. Computer, she said quietly, prepare a message for Earth. Highest priority. What should the message say, Doctor? Dr. Vasquez thought for a moment about all the worlds that were about to die, all the species that were about to face extinction because they had never learned to solve their own problems. "Tell them," she said, "that we finally understand what we have lost, and ask them if there is any way to earn it back." The delegation that approached Earth's solar system was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen before. Leading the fleet was Chancellor Vex 9 himself, abandoning Concordia Prime for the first time in his 50-year career. Behind him came the most powerful beings in the galaxy, General Thrak in his flagship, Prime Crystal Zara 7 in her singing ship, an elder whisper projecting her consciousness across space to join them. They were not coming as conquerors, or even as negotiators. They were coming as beggars that the news that had driven them to this desperate journey was worse than anything they could have imagined. The Void Devourers had broken through the inner defensive lines. The vegan colonies were gone. The Centauri trading hub had vanished overnight. 3 more core worlds had gone dark in the past week. But it was not just the advancing enemy that had broken their spirit. It was the realization of their own helplessness. When the Draconian Empire tried to mount a counterattack without human strategic guidance, their entire battle fleet had flown directly into a Void Devourer trap. General Thrak had barely escaped with half his ships. When the Crystal Consortium attempted to use their energy weapons without human technical advisors, the weapons had overloaded and destroyed their own vessels. Every solution they tried failed. Every strategy they devised crumbled. For 3 centuries, they had relied on human intuition to guide them. And now they were like children stumbling in the dark. Admiral Sarah Torres watched the alien fleet approach from the bridge of the Terra Invictus. Her ship hung in space near the edge of the solar system, surrounded by technology that seemed to bend reality around itself. The alien vessels moved in simple, predictable patterns. But her ship existed in multiple dimensions at once, impossible to target or even fully perceive. "They are requesting permission to approach Earth," reported her communications officer. "Denied," Admiral Torres replied without hesitation. "Earth is not accepting visitors. Tell them they can state their business here." The response came immediately. Chancellor Vex 9's voice carried a weight of desperation that even the translation devices could not hide. "Admiral Torres," the Chancellor said, "I come not as the leader of the Galactic Assembly, but as a being who has finally learned the value of what we lost. Please, we must speak with Earth's leaders. The galaxy is dying." "The galaxy has been dying for 6 months," Admiral Torres replied coldly. "Where were your concerns when Earth offered to help? You chose to fight alone. How is that working for you?" Through the view screen, she could see the alien ships maintaining their distance. But their formation was all wrong. Too spread out, too vulnerable. Without human tactical advisors, even their basic fleet movements were flawed. "Admiral," Chancellor Vex 9 pleaded, "we know we wronged your people. We know we took your gifts for granted. We are here to offer whatever payment you demand for your return." Admiral Torres smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. "Payment? Chancellor, do you still not understand? This was never about payment. This was about respect." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent signal from Earth. Admiral Torres listened to the encrypted message, her expression growing more serious by the moment. "Chancellor," she said when the transmission ended, "you may approach the Terra Invictus, but only one ship, and you will submit to our security protocols." An hour later, the alien leaders found themselves in a conference room that seemed to exist outside normal space. The walls showed views of galaxies and dimensions that their eyes could not quite process. At the head of the table sat Admiral Torres, flanked by 2 other humans they had never met. Chancellor Vex 9's scales had turned a pale blue with exhaustion and stress. He had not slept in weeks, and it showed in every gesture. "Thank you for seeing us," he began. "We come to offer our formal surrender." Admiral Torres raised an eyebrow. "Surrender? To whom?" "To humanity," General Thrax said, his voice heavy with shame. "We offer to place all our fleets under human command, our worlds under human administration. Whatever you require, we will accept." "You are willing to become our subjects?" asked one of the other humans, a woman with silver hair and sharp eyes. "If that is what it takes to save our worlds," Elder Whisper replied, her ghostly form flickering with emotion. "We have read the ethereal analysis. We understand now what you are. We know that trying to fight without your guidance is like trying to see without eyes." Admiral Torres leaned back in her chair and studied the alien leaders for a long moment. They looked broken, desperate, ready to trade their freedom for the chance to survive. "No," she said finally. The aliens stared at her in shock. "No?" Chancellor Vex 9 whispered. "But the galaxy. The galaxy is not our responsibility," Admiral Torres said firmly. "We tried to make it our responsibility for 300 years, and you treated us like useful tools. We will not make that mistake again." Prime Crystal Zara 7's form flickered with despair. "Then we are all doomed. The Void Devourers will consume everything." "Perhaps," Admiral Torres agreed. "But that is not humanity's problem anymore." General Thrax slammed his fist on the table, his anger overriding his desperation. "How can you sit there and watch billions die? What happened to your honor?" "Our honor?" Admiral Torres stood up, her voice rising for the first time. "General, where was the honor when human diplomats were given seats in the back of your assembly? Where was the respect when human scientists were credited as research assistants for discoveries they made alone? Where was the gratitude when human pilots died guiding your fleets through dangers you could not navigate yourself?" The aliens fell silent. They had no answer because there was no answer. However, Admiral Torres continued, sitting back down. "We are not completely without mercy. We will consider returning to galactic affairs under one condition." "Anything," Chancellor Vex 9 said immediately. "Partnership." The silver-haired woman spoke for the first time. "Not leadership. Not servitude. Partnership. Equal voices in all decisions. Equal representation in your government. Equal recognition for our contributions." "Done," the Chancellor said without hesitation. "You agree quickly," Admiral Torres observed. "But what happens after this crisis is over? What happens when you no longer need our help? Will you remember this partnership then?" Elder Whisper's form brightened slightly. "We will create binding agreements, written into the fundamental laws of the new Galactic Union. Humanity will have permanent co-leadership status." "Words on paper," Admiral Torres said dismissively. "We have seen how much your treaties mean when convenience suggests otherwise. Then what do you want?" General Thrax demanded. Admiral Torres smiled again, and this time it was genuine. "We want you to prove you have learned. We want you to solve this crisis together with us, not for us. We will provide guidance, but the galaxy must save itself." "How?" Chancellor Vex 9 asked. "By doing what you should have done 300 years ago." The third human spoke for the first time. He was a young man with kind eyes and a determined expression. "By learning to think like humans do." "That is impossible," Prime Crystal Zara 7 protested. "We do not have your quantum consciousness abilities." "No," the young man agreed. "But you do have something we lack. You have perspectives and abilities that humans could never achieve alone. The Crystal Consortium can see energy patterns we cannot perceive. The Ethereal Collective can link minds in ways we cannot match. The Draconians have tactical instincts that complement our strategic intuition." Admiral Torres nodded. "For 300 years you used us to solve your problems. What we are offering now is to solve this problem together, as true allies. The alien leaders looked at each other with something approaching hope for the first time in months. "What do you propose?" Chancellor Vex 9 asked. Admiral Torres stood and walked to the wall display. With a gesture, she brought up a star map showing the advance of the Void Devourers. "We propose the synthesis protocol," she said. Human intuition to find the patterns. Ethereal consciousness to coordinate the response. Crystal energy manipulation to power the weapons. Draconian tactics to guide the battles. And all species working together as equals to implement the solution. "You already have a plan," General Frack realized. "We have had a plan for 6 months," Admiral Torres admitted. "We knew this day would come. The question is, are you truly ready to be partners rather than subjects?" Elder Whisper flickered brightly. "We are ready to try." "Then let us begin," Admiral Torres said. "But remember, this is not humanity saving the galaxy again. This is the galaxy finally learning to save itself." Outside the conference room, the stars waited. The Void Devourers continued their advance, unaware that they were about to face something they had never encountered before, a truly united galaxy that had learned to combine the strengths of all its species. For the first time in 300 years, humanity would not stand alone against the darkness. And for the first time in galactic history, the other species would not depend on human miracles to save them. They would create their own miracles together.